Aston Villa have signed the French midfielder Boubacar Kamara. The 22-year-old joins Villa on a free transfer from Marseille. I'm joined today by Jonathan Johnson. He's a French-based sports correspondent for CBS, and he's also an Aston Villa fan. Perfect, really. So, Jonathan, it's great to have you back on. What kind of a player have Aston Villa signed?
Thanks for having me back on. It's a pleasure to get the invite once more and to be able to chat to everyone about Kamara today. Well, I mean, the good news is that Villa are signing a player who's talented in multiple positions. You know, he's a very capable defender as well as a midfielder. I believe that Villa have signed him more to be sort of that defensive midfield linchpin that we've been looking for and crying out for. But he can quite equally step into the centre of defence as well, which was initially sort of where he burst through before actually finding himself properly in the middle of the park.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have watched him quite a bit in the French league. Just how good a player is Kamara?
Oh, he's a hugely talented guy, somebody I rate very highly, somebody who's been crucial to this much improved Marseille side that finished second in the season just finished. And I think that they will miss him hugely. And I think some of the stuff that's being said, since it emerged that his choice was Villa, reflects just sort of how bitter, OM feel about losing somebody of his talent, of his importance, to a club that they would view as inferior, but they also know that they can't compete with Villa in terms of finances. I mean, something else that's sort of fed into this as well is the fact that the expectation for a long time has been that Kamara hasn't been extending his contract at Stade Velodrome because he was going to join, one of the clubs considered the European giants, like an AC Milan club like that. So then for Steven Gerrard to swoop in quite late, because obviously it was only public knowledge that Villa were watching Kamara as of a couple of weeks ago when they were in action in the Europa Conference League. That started to get people worried that Kamara might be leaving on a free to a club, who they would consider, to not be their equal, despite the fact that both clubs have won a European Cup. So, to see him joining up with Morgan Sanson at Villa Park certainly wasn't what many Marseille fans were expecting a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, and I'd seen the links to Kamara for quite a long time and looked into him a bit. And I kind of, when I started to see him getting linked to teams like Atletico Madrid, I did start to wonder, what are the chances Villa might get him? Will he go to a Champions League team? So do you think, are you kind of surprised he's gone to Villa in a way, considering some of the teams he was linked with? And do you think it's a real coup for Steven Gerrard?
I am surprised, and I do think it's a coup. I think it's a real statement of intent. I think it's, it looks massively positive, as does, a lot of the activity that Villa have been making recently, to be snapping up players like Coutinho for the reported price of 20 million, as we have, that is, major progress, given where we were a couple of years ago. And I think as well, it shows now that, the appeal of Gerrard as manager is coming into its own. It's been a bit up and down since he took over. With Villa have had their moments, but they've also had some sort of frustratingly familiar feelings during matches, which were there still under Dean Smith. And this Villa side still feels like a work in progress, but it's now when we're completing these sorts of transfers, that it really feels like Villa are starting to get close to tapping into their potential. And if we can find a bit of form at the beginning of next season, obviously make a couple more signings sort of in this same vein, I think that, we are now set, to really, make an assault or launch an assault on the top half of the table and hopefully a bit better. I think many of us were disappointed that the push for Europe that we were kind of hoping for this season never really materialized. And it takes, these kind of unexpected statement signings, like bringing Kamara in, to really push us towards, those positions. And I think as well, you can't underestimate either the importance of Gerrard having a full pre-season with the squad once he's started to be able to stamp his authority on it as well. He walked into quite a tricky situation given the downward spiral that Villa suddenly found themselves in Dean Smith's last days. But things are a lot more positive now. Guys like Dean, like Coutinho coming in, and now Kamara as well have contributed towards that. And hopefully we can get in one or two more players sort of in a similar, of a similar caliber to Kamara. But to steal in ahead of clubs like Atletico, AC Milan, that's a huge statement for Villa. And I think as well, kudos to Steven Gerrard for managing to sell it to Kamara, because he had a lot of big clubs, wanting to bring him in. Clubs, he would arguably suit their style of play as well, like Atleti. Yet Villa, were able to present their vision and the project, and Gerrard was the guy who managed to pull that off and actually make it happen.
Yeah, and I think a criticism a lot of Villa fans have had for the last couple of years is that we haven't signed a central defensive midfielder. It seems to be a recurring theme on our podcast, on various Villa forums and that kind of thing. And seemingly the only defensive midfielder specialist we've had is Marvelous Nakamba. And then obviously Douglas Luiz has been filling in that role. So do you think Boubacar Kamara solves a lot of their problems? Does he have, is he an athletic player? Is he good at progressing the ball as well, not just defensively?
Yeah, I mean, he is I consider him, getting close to being quite a complete player. Don't expect him to be a goal threat. He's not sort of that kind of all-action player, but he is somebody, who will add physical presence and bite in that midfield. I think it's a shame what's happened with Nakamba this season, because he started so well under Gerrard, then was really unlucky to get injured. And it was only really, since Gerrard has come in that we've started to actually see his potential, in that role. But I think any club of Villa's stature, and certainly with the aspirations that we have, Villa almost need two players in every position. And I think Kamara is able to fill so many roles, both in midfield, but also in defense, he adds massive value. I think one of the problems that Villa have had over the last couple of years is we've almost been too loyal towards some players who are not necessarily coasting, but they're either close to, having given the club everything that they can, or, having sort of come as far as they can, or they've kind of gotten complacent and need a bit of competition in order to rediscover their best form. So, I think bringing in somebody like Kamara, who I expect to become a very vocal, very dominant figure in the Villa squad, is a step in the right direction. And I certainly think that the midfield is going to look a lot more dynamic next season for having him in it.
That's really good to hear, and it's certainly the sort of character and profile of player that Villa just seem to have been screaming out for, particularly in games against teams like West Ham, when we seem to just kind of get physically overrun sometimes, maybe a little bit bullied. But you mentioned him earlier, Morgan Sanson. So we have signed a midfielder from Marseille before, not necessarily through any fault of Sanson. It just hasn't quite worked for him really at Villa. Injuries and just getting past certain players. Possibly McGinn's not really been able to get a run of games. Is there any risk that Kamara could end up having a similar fortune to Morgan Sanson, or do you think that Kamara will be a starter for sure and will get the run of games that Sanson never really got?
So, we're now in this situation where we're looking at Sanson and thinking, well, maybe he'll be moved on this summer. Who knows? I know that plenty of speculation has been going on in French football Twitter circles, with Marseille fans discussing the fact that he's back in Marseille at the moment. Dined with Marseille manager Jorge Sampaoli the other day, apparently. So there's lots of speculation that he might even return this summer. I don't think that Kamara is going to risk, sort of suffering the same fate as Sanson, because I think having a full pre-season will allow him to bed in properly. And also I think it's very important for Gerrard to get the kind of profile of guys that he wants. And obviously Kamara was close to the top of the list of priorities, for Gerrard this summer. I think it has the potential to save Villa a lot of money in terms of a transfer fee. And obviously, I think Gerrard will intend to use him in the starting 11 as quickly as possible. But it's all going to depend, how quickly he beds in. We've now got a couple of French speakers, which will help. And I think key for Villa in coming into the new season will be having a proper full pre-season, with the current manager and staff in place, but also being able to get those players to gel instead of sort of starting the season with one or two new faces, players being added late in the transfer window. I think Villa's plan, and Kamara is certainly one that, the intention is to set the tone ahead of this summer, is that Villa will get a lot of their transfer business done as early as possible so that Gerrard can have the maximum amount of time pre-season, to get his ideas across and to get that chemistry bubbling. Because if Villa can make a strong start to the season, then given the quality that we now have in the ranks and a nice little bit of depth, which hasn't always been the case. I definitely think that, there is the potential, like I said earlier, for us to target the top half of the table. But I think as well, I mean, we're discussing Sanson and Kamara at the moment. I think now is the time that Villa have to take some really serious, tough decisions with certain players. We've got an abundance of wide players, many of them, extremely talented. Some perhaps, have sort of come to the end of the line with Villa naturally as well, where, I think it's going to be better for Villa to move a certain number of these guys on, and it's not just limited to wide players. Some of them are in other positions as well. And I think Sanson is one of those, he needs now some clarity if he's going to really be given a shot by Gerrard, or if it's just better for him to move on, perhaps return to France. My feeling is that it's maybe going to be better for him to cut his losses. I think it's been a very difficult time for him. He hasn't really been able to express himself properly. Like you said, it's not necessarily through any fault of his own. I do think there have been times as well where he perhaps could have been used or called upon or given more of a chance, and it just hasn't worked out that way. I think our habitual underperformance in domestic cups in recent years doesn't help with the squad depth either, because it would be the ideal time to get somebody like a Sanson, up to speed domestically, and we seem to crash out of these competitions far too early for my liking. So I think really Gerrard has to be brutally honest with himself and with members of the squad this summer, and if he's not going to use somebody like a Sanson, because he's now got players of the ability of a Kamara, a Coutinho, a Dean, I think he needs to let them move on, and the club can get them off of the wage bill, perhaps bring in a fee for them, and look to invest that money elsewhere in the positions where we are really going to need and rely upon players this season, this coming season.
Yeah, it's certainly been nice to see Villa moving so quickly in the transfer window. It sort of makes a change to how it's been for most of my life, really. I guess sort of as a sort of a final question, just to ask you really, how else do you think Villa will attack this transfer market? What profile of player do you think they'll get in? And for the season ahead, or kind of more under Steven Gerrard, I guess, how confident are you that Villa are on the right track?
I'm very confident we're on the right track. I mean, if you look at the way that we've performed, certainly against some of the tougher teams in the league towards the end of the season, we have gone toe-to-toe with some of the big boys at times. We're in 2-0 up away at Manchester City, and there's not many teams that managed to do that. Yes, I know we crumbled and fell away, but I think it was very unique circumstances, given that they knew they had to at least avoid defeat to win the league. And we came very close to at least holding Liverpool to a draw at home as well. And I think we have the capability of pushing those teams even further. You look at the way some of those games played out, some of the chances that were missed, and arguably the results could have been better just in those two examples. And there've been a number of other examples to point to over the course of the season where Villa probably haven't picked up points where they should have done. Arguably, that's cost us making some progress and finishing in the top half this season just gone. I definitely think the way that the squad is shaping up, that Steven Gerrard is going to oversee a bright future at Villa Park. I hope that begins at the start of next season. The other thing I'm curious to see really in terms of who we target this summer is who we can perhaps get in who would be a recognised and consistent source of goals. There's been suggestions that we're looking at the likes of Jonathan David at Lille. That would be an exciting signing for Villa, in my opinion. There's also been suggestions of Sven Botman as well. So a double raid on Lille would be fantastic for me, obviously, being a French football specialist. But I think as well, I'd like to see Villa bring in a little bit more experience, perhaps. And I'm not talking about, a proper veteran presence, but I feel like the squad is now at the point where it's shaping up to be almost like ideal to play a 3-4-3, or at least to have, Dean and Matty Cash pushing forward basically almost as right and left midfielders. So for me, that naturally would mean, looking at a three-man defence regularly. And while I'd rather have Kamara in the midfield, I think that opens up the possibility of bringing in somebody with a bit more experience than Konsa and Mings to play at the heart of defence, because I think, as much as Mings is a great guy and a good player, I sometimes feel he gets a bit distracted by balancing being a leader and actually doing some of the basics right defensively sometimes. And I think Konsa's form has suffered as well. So neither both have a bit of blame to be shouldered there. But I think with a more established, experienced presence in the middle of the two of them, perhaps in defence, that would shore things up a lot at the back. And like I said, a reliable goal-scoring presence, would be a real breath of fresh air as well. The other thing I'm really keen to see, especially given the way that the season ended up, is how Gerrard goes about tackling the question of having Buendia and Coutinho in the team at the same time. We've seen him try different things. But it really did seem like Buendia, every time he was given the chance and was on the pitch, made things happen for Villa. Yeah. We looked a better team each time he was on the pitch, and it would be a shame if he was sort of consigned to a bench role. So I do hope what I was saying earlier in the podcast does ring true, and that we are looking to establish a squad where you've almost got two players in every position that fit the systems that Gerrard wants to use moving forward. And I'm curious to see who we target next, because we do seem to have a knack of identifying, talented, players who have not yet hit the peaks of their career and have a lot of potential to live up to. We don't always go for that many sort of tried and tested options. I'd be a bit worried about a Luis Suarez at this stage of his career, but if you could almost get like a defensive version of Suarez, I don't know, maybe sort of in the mold of Godin, but obviously not Godin himself, given the way that his career's dropped off. That kind of figure, I think, in defence, commanding figure, somebody with major leadership credentials would do the world of good.
Yeah, almost like a Thiago Silva at Chelsea, almost. That's a sort of similar profile.
Yeah, I mean, you look at some of the guys who are available at the moment, Chiellini going off to Major League Soccer. I mean, that kind of profile, but maybe with a bit longer left in his career. I'm not sure that one's going to work out that well.
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. And also, Jonathan, I gather you interviewed Kylian Mbappe in the last couple of days. No chance that he's going to change his mind and reject the PSG project and head to Aston Villa.
You know what? I did try to put in a cheeky word. Sold the experience of scoring a goal in front of the whole 10. First taste of a Balti pie, all of the standard, Villa fandom stuff. And sadly, he's going to be sticking around in Paris for the next couple of years. I can't complain too much. Obviously, that's a huge boost, not only for PSG, but for French football, Ligue 1, especially at this time when it's quite delicate in terms of the next TV rights deal and, trying to keep up with the rest of the top five in Europe. But who knows, perhaps one day, I mean, I don't know. We'll see how Villa get on in the next couple of years. I mean, there is one thing that Villa will always have over PSG until they get over that hump, and that's a Champions League trophy in the cabinet. Well, European Cup back when we won it. But that is always a source of merriment for me whenever I'm there at PSG doing these interviews. That I'm a fan of a club that has won the one trophy, the one title that PSG absolutely craves. So who knows? Maybe one day we'll see Mbappe on English soil. Fingers crossed it might be with Villa, and if not, maybe it'll be with a Liverpool or something like that. But I think that's a few years away yet.
Yeah, sounds like it. Well, Jonathan, it's been absolutely brilliant to have you on. Where can people find you on social media and find your work generally?
I think the best place for everyone to find me is on Twitter. So if they look for me at @JON_Legosip, and that's where you'll find, the bulk of my CBS work, my articles, the interview with Mbappe, Nasser Al-Khelaifi, stuff like that. So that's definitely the best place to keep sort of up to date with what I'm doing.